Residents of Alexandra who have been advocating for the occupation of the City of Johannesburg container homes may face an extended wait before receiving their allocations. The member of the Mayoral Committee for Human Settlements, Mlungisi Mabaso, stated that the container units, which have remained unoccupied for nearly 4 years, will only be allocated once they have undergone refurbishment and have been certified as safe by engineers. Well, let's take this conversation further as we are now joined by community leaders and activists, Nkele, Galedzana and Nthabiseng, Ratsela. Ladies, thanks so much for coming onto the show. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for inviting us.
Nkele, let's start off with you, Nkele. Just walk us through where we are at the moment. I mean, let's just go back, look at a little bit of history. What are some of the challenges that the people of Alexandra Township have been facing with accommodation before we take a look at these structures that are available, have been available for 4 years and still not available for occupation there?
Yeah. I think firstly, let me say thank you for inviting me for speaking about such issues, in particular for Alexandra. We've never gotten an open space to speak about them. To be honest with you, for some time, Alexandra has been an overpopulated place where we have a lot of shacks, number one. So informal settlements are actually filled up in Alexandra. We're populated by that, unfortunately, because of looking at the current people that we have, basically, who are unemployed, therefore who cannot even have a bricked house to be built for themselves. So that's the situation we're looking at. And also, when the solution that the government says they're bringing to Alexandra, unfortunately, there's a lot of corruption that comes within them. And you know the ARP itself, which is also under investigation. That's one of the things that they had said as the government, we're bringing change to you, in particular when it comes to housing, so that we can bring a better change for you. But unfortunately, corruption and even the process in itself of how they allocate, it's who's my friend? What are you bringing to the table? Unfortunately, so the poor of the poorest who actually need those houses don't even get those houses. So the situation that we're looking at in the past years till today, we're still sitting with that even now.
Nthabiseng, let's talk about these houses or these containers that exist. Just what sort of relief are they likely to bring to the people of Alexandra if allocated properly?
Thank you for inviting us. I think the sense of relief would be transparent to the residents of Alex. And if they can be transparent and actually go back to those people and actually explain to them how the allocation is going to be done, because we believe that there is a list, or there are lists of people that are actually supposed to be occupying those containers. So if they can go back to those people and explain to them and actually bring out those lists and occupy those containers, because there are people that have been on waiting lists forever, for years and years. And we have people that still have C forms from 1993. And now you're building containers during COVID, and you're promising people that they will occupy them come 2024, post-election. Those containers are still empty. So what are you actually saying to these people? Are they not supposed to have houses? Are they supposed to be homeless? What are you actually saying? And you're actually bringing it to the township where they believe that their leaders are actually supposed to be the ones that actually give them shelter. So this corruption with our leaders is actually exploiting our people.
So ladies, excuse me, it's been 4 years since these containers have been put up, I suppose, used and lying idle, if you will. I think some were occupied, and individuals were kicked out of those that were occupied. The question that arises: where have you ladies been in the last 4 years?
I think with me, in the last 4 years, let me particularly speak about the containers that are in my ward. I reside in Ward 75. In 2021, I contested as an independent candidate because of the very same things that are happening in that ward. In the very same space where these containers are occupying was a ground that the former soccer player, Maimani Piri, used to have games where young people used to go there for recreational activities. And in fact, at that time, we had a less rate of people who were actually consuming drugs at that time, and young people. And so that's the first thing, in fact, that we should be dealing with in particular. Right now, kids need to walk all the way until Marlborough to then get a place where they play soccer. Others even get, you know, involved in accidents and so forth. So we've been around. we've been talking. We've been saying that people need assistance, people need houses, but we haven't been heard. That's the unfortunate problem about it.
And who have you been speaking to during this time?
It's basically your local government, your councillors, your MMCs, the people that are actually running the local government, your human settlement officers, but to no avail, no responses, none whatsoever.
So what are you hoping will be done now? I mean, let's talk about the numbers. How many containers are these? What is the impact of this number of containers on the people of Alexandra?
To be honest with you, there is no impact. Why I'm saying that is because there's a lot of people who actually need housing. You know, a lot of people. Those containers, plus minus, let's say 2,000, if we combine them. So it means that 2,000 families get households. Yeah, but there's more. 10,000 more, unfortunately, in Alexandra. So the impact will be there, but not as much. So
what I'm interested in finding out is, what have the excuses been for the last 4 years? I mean, it's almost unfathomable, right, that you have an opportunity to impact 2,000 families, right, and you choose not to for whatever reason. What is the mood on the ground? Do you represent how the people of Alexandra are feeling?
I think the last meeting we had as a community asking about the containers, the response we got was they're not done yet. They still need to put in geysers and whatever so that the people, when they enter the houses, they need to be comfortable. But to date, they're still saying the same thing, that they still need to finish and they still need to get engineers. So to what extent, up until when, they're going to continue saying, this is missing, we still need to do this, we need to do that. And the thing is, you speak to one person, then the government changes, they put on the next person. The next person needs to start afresh and find out where were the loopholes. So it's constantly people that are getting changed in local government and you end up not having a solution.
Now there have been issues where an individual was shot and killed, which is very sad. Now, how do you avert something similar happening when it comes to allocation of these houses? So, the respective MMC or the government of Gauteng then decides that they are going to rehabilitate these containers that will impact 2,000 families in the next few months. Roll call is done to say, okay, these are the individuals that are going to occupy these new homes. How do you prevent fiasco, right? So this engagement is coordinated. Can we expect a similar coordinated effort of occupancy?
I think if the government would sit down with stakeholders of Alexandra, that's the first thing. There's a list. It's been there in housing for the longest of time. Let's start from the beginning when we do the allocations. And I think people of Alexandra will be happy because we have our grandmothers, as Nthabiseng said, who forever have C forms that were allocated to them in 1995, others 1996. Let's start there when we allocate those houses at this time and space and utilize stakeholders who will be actually coordinating the entire processes. Let not only be housing, who have particular friends, who have particular interests for themselves to then gain. Because the reality is that if we have the same situation where housing department, like with the RTP, then allocates to people that are their friends or to people who are bringing money, we're going to have a serious problem in Alexandra. People of Alexandra are angry. That's the unfortunate thing. They're very much angry.
So how do we deal, Nthabiseng, with this anger? Because it's, I mean, we've experienced it, right? Somebody's lost their life, right? Yeah. So shouldn't the conversations be happening right now with the community? Shouldn't the community itself, does the community have access to those records? I mean, you've talked about grandmothers that have been on the list since the 90s. In fact, prior to South Africa gaining its democracy. So we're going back 30 years. So the individuals that are on that list for 30 years, and I'd imagine that could be the bulk of the 2,000. How are you dealing with the 25-year-old, the 35-year-old who's got 2 or 3 children and says, you know what, I too have a right to this establishment, or my mother was on the list, I should immediately take over. Should that be left to the MMC and Gauteng government, or is it something that the community needs to put in place before that engagement is done?
I think that our leaders need to be transparent, number one. Because we have our DPs that were built. There's a place called Tsotsomane and River Park. Those houses have owners. Those people still have C forms for those owners. But now, the people that occupy those houses are not the legal people that are actually supposed to be there. It has been spoken about. People have been complaining about it. Like Nkele had said, there are people that have friends somewhere in the government.
But these are the very same people that are members of your community, right?
That's what I'm saying.
Are you calling these people out? Because
they get called out.
One would imagine that the onus is on you, the community members. We keep talking, to digress a little bit, about how community members will help, for instance, the police and flush out criminals and people doing illicit activity. This is an opportunity for you to do the very same thing.
I think there was a program that you could have seen around Dudula. There were certain community members. In fact, that was the first thing they did. They went household to household to then remove, if you are an individual who's occupying a household that does not belong to you, then that person is removed from there. So that was the first stance that actually community of Alexandra did. But now the problem is that there were certain individuals who were part and parcel of the local government, who were councillors, who felt that this certain Dudula that is operating within Alexandra is not doing justice to the community because it is helping the community members, but they felt it's not doing justice. But however, we saw the effect of it, and it actually helped a lot. So I think that is the strategy that needs to be used also going forward. Yes, we need to have the discussions on the ground. However, people of Alexandra, after what happened to Mushe, are actually skeptical about having conversations like this. Because there are certain people who feel that they are entitled to the Alexandra that we live in because they gain certain things from it. Unfortunately, it's no one who will apologetically speak or call a meeting, a general meeting, and say, residents of Alexandra, this is the movement that we want to take. This is how we're going to move with this. That's the unfortunate part. However, we still need to push for it as the community to say enough is enough. We have come to the point where we need to then service the people on the ground. Whether it means that we have to die for the revolution, let it be like that, unfortunately. I mean, we can't then let Mushe's death just go out of notice.
Well, I don't think it needs to get to a point where people are sacrificing their lives for this. It almost defies the purpose, right? But let's look at these container homes and the fact that they were meant to be a temporary structure, right? Do you get the sense that nothing else can be done outside of now converting what should have been a temporary structure into maybe more permanent structures for Alexandra?
Nothing in Alex gets introduced and gets done, and nothing, even if they can say we're going to do a certain project, it's either it gets done or it gets half done. So with the containers, I personally do not believe that they are there temporarily. I think they are there to stay, but they are there to stay for people that they want to be occupying those containers.
Now, I'm coming back to what you said a few minutes ago, right? That there's very little land available in Alex, and that containers seem to be a plausible plan. Is this the way forward for Alex?
No, it's not the way forward.
Not only, no.
I think if our leaders would listen to us, you know, if our leaders would listen to us, there's a project that was done in the apartheid era, where in Alexandra they built flats. So flat units that have 2 rooms, 1 bathroom, sitting room, and a kitchen. So if we were to take that process within Alexandra, we would get somewhere because there's no land, we're overpopulated. The only thing that will actually fix Alexandra is these flats. So these certain units.
So building up?
Yes, let's build up. But let it not be a build-up of one individual, but let it be a build-up of family units that we build up each and every place within Alexandra. Maybe right now we've got phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. Let's have phase 4, perhaps, that will then accommodate people. Because I believe in the very same place where these containers are built, they could have built flats there. There's one, as I said, in my ward, in Ward 75. In fact, initially, we were told that the reason why those containers were there was because there's a hostel called Madala Hostel. It's a problem. There's water that comes out of that very same hostel that actually is ruining the street by 6th Avenue. It has actually dug it up, so you can't even really commute around there. So initially, that was what the councillor told us, that this is the plan that is happening within this ward, where people of Madala Hostel will be moved into these containers. From there, Madala Hostel will then be renovated as a whole, and then they will go back to there. So
I'm going to ask you to hold that thought. I'm in conversation with community leaders and activists, Nkele, Galedzana, and Nthabiseng, Ratsela from Alex, having a conversation about temporary housing of sorts, container housing that has been introduced and the challenges around its occupancy. We continue with that conversation when Newsfeed PM returns in a moment. All right, now, residents of Alexandra who've been advocating for the occupation of the City of Johannesburg container homes may face an extended wait before receiving their allocations. Okay, so we are in a conversation in the studio at the moment. Just to pick up this conversation, Nkele and Nthabiseng, again, thank you for coming onto the show. Now, one of the things that I'd like to talk about is motivating or driving the people of Alex to a point where the authorities stop and listen. Now, South Africa is one of those countries where disgruntled residents, whether it's service delivery or whatever else, will take to the streets, will walk, will petition, right, for action to be taken. Now, Nkele, you're familiar with Dudula and certainly some of the impact that it had in Alex. Has it been a similar stance? Is there an opportunity for a similar stance to engage the authorities at that level? Nthabiseng, you've talked about the change in leadership, and unfortunately this doesn't bode well for pushing changes. It's been 4 years, right? It may not be enough to sit around a table and have this conversation, but let's talk about what can the people do for themselves legally?
The people need to organize themselves.
Are you not the people?
Yes, I am the people. In fact, we need to start it and organize ourselves, go to the community, speak to them and say, we need to come together. It's been too long for us sitting back and saying, the government will do, the government will do. We need to organize ourselves, make sure that in us organizing ourselves, we make sure that even our councillors on the ground, actually, because at the end of the day, once they become councillors, they get out of political parties and become public servants. By them being public servants, we then need to lobby them and make sure they are part of the struggle. And making sure that they're part of the struggle is them showing them that, in fact, you are part of us. This problem is affecting you. Each and every day, a person comes into your office and says, I don't have a home to stay. I have issues of water, I have this and this and that. But all of this is affecting housing. So come with us and make sure that we go to the City of Johannesburg, because a petition was just sent, in fact, a few days ago to Dada Morera about the containers in itself. So that was a start. However, we all need to go, because after the containers...
You posted the petition?
Yes, yes. So we need to...
Nthabiseng, sorry to interject, Nkele, but you know, I'm thinking of the severity of the issue, right? So it's almost like a burning building, right? And you send a letter to say, you know, we have a burning building. Mm-hmm. It doesn't speak, certainly in my view, to the gravity of the issue, right? Ugogo has been waiting since 1993, yeah? And you suppose that sending a petition to the new mayor of Joburg will work. I mean, let's not even talk about the numerous other challenges, the petitions around the the buildings that have burnt in Joburg in the last couple of years, and other petitions around housing elsewhere. Do you not get the sense that you probably need to do a little bit more?
If we can get councillors, because we've got councillors in our wards, in our communities, if we can get councillors that are with us and not have councillors that would be in power and try and help the community, but they don't live within us. So you become a councillor, you move out of the community. What are you then saying? Are you saying you are better off and not experiencing the same problems that we're having? So we are saying our leaders need to be with us. For us to resolve all these issues, they need to be here with us so that when we write those petitions or we go and say, can we go to our stakeholders? Let's march to human settlement. Can we go together with our leaders so that they can see that our leaders are with us? It's not only the residents that are disgruntled, but it's actually with them, with us together. We are saying enough is enough.
So how does enough is enough manifest? In fact, maybe before we even get there, let's talk about this petition that went to Dada Morero. What were the contents of the petition?
It was that we need to occupy, and they need to do the process properly, because there are people in that ward, which is Ward 109, Ward 108, who need to occupy that spaces. If you could check, most of them are actually living on the street. So they need to then make sure that those people occupy there, and within a certain term of duration. And probably in 2 weeks' time, if the mayor does not respond, then the people of Alexandra will be visiting him again.
We'll be sending another letter. Well,
No.
Well, you've got inclement weather at the moment, so pray Johannesburg does not experience the level of weather that we've been experiencing elsewhere in the country. So the expectation is that in the next fortnight, Dada Morero will take a stand and deal with the issues. There have been talks that the structures are not ready for occupation. Have you inspected the structures? Or, I mean, how do you react to that?
Yeah, I think since they took those people out, and securities are there, and no one is allowed to go there, so you can't actually inspect. But the memorandum that has been sent, it's the only way that we can actually get attention. I think what they need to give us, it's time frame. I think that's if they can say in 2 weeks' time we're coming to resolve, then I think then we can say then they're attending to our matter. But with the situation that it is now, we just have to wait. They're not saying anything.
So let's shift focus a little bit and talk about Ugogo. You know, since 1993 or 94, who's looking out for the elderly? Who's there for those that aren't able-bodied, that are entitled to this housing? I mean, I'm concerned as to how this process is going to work, because it almost feels like, I mean, when we talk about the individuals that were involved in the protests and fought back with the police, it's definitely not your grandmother or my grandmother that would be doing that. You know, it's us, those who've kind of come are midway on the list and not at the top of the list.
To answer your question, the reality is that in Alexandra, most households, we are raised by our grandmothers. And unfortunately, I can't let my grandmother go out and fight the battle. As young as I am, it is my opportunity, it is my right. In fact, it is my duty to make sure that I fight for my grandmother. So we are fighting for our grandmothers. That is why we're even mentioning them here, to say we want it to start with them, because they have been there for the longest of time. However, we ourselves as young people are saying we will fight on their behalf. Unfortunately, we can't have our grandmothers. Imagine if our grandmothers were the ones who were shot during the time when it's occupying. That would be even more sad. In as much as we're sad about the shooting of Muslim Pasela, but imagine if it was my grandmother, if it was someone else's grandmother, how would that feel? Lying there, being shot, how would that feel? So we have given ourselves the opportunity to say, as young people of Alexandra, we will fight the battle on their behalf.
Nthabiseng, let's talk a little bit about the general well-being and socio-economic issues in townships like Alexandra. Outside of housing, what are some of the other challenges that people in Alex are facing?
Water and sanitation. People still use the bucket system, some. It's electricity, illegal connections because of illegal structures. Hence, we're sitting with the housing problem. So people have constructed illegal structures which result in having problem with electricity. So those are some of the issues that we have in Alex. Sanitation, water, sometimes we 3 days without water, 3 days without electricity. Those are some of the problems that we're facing in Alex.
Nkele, you ran as an independent councillor. What are some of the changes that you would have liked to see or implemented had you come out victorious, or would still like to see, for that matter?
Okay. The first thing was the housing issue and unemployment rate in my community. There was a program that I was running for skills development in Ward 75. That was one thing that I actually wanted so much for us to build around the councillorship in itself. Why I say that, yes, as an independent person, I'm able to do that, but with the resources of the government in itself, we're able to do more and we're able to touch even more people. So my plan was also that it doesn't stop only in Ward 75, but it goes vast into the whole Alexandra in itself. Why? Because we have seen that in the skills development, the township economy in itself is lacking. And that is why, as you can see in the news, there are issues whereby individuals of Alexandra are actually now fighting against foreign nations because they are selling their vegetables in Pan-African Mall. However, if we as young people, or rather people of Alexandra, would have those skills, would be able to then have skills, maybe let's say carpentry, we'd go to Pan-Africa and do that. Maybe if farming, we'd then, invest our time in that rather than looking at the next person, but making sure that we ourselves utilize those skills. So that is one of the changes that I wanted to build on. And lastly, also, another thing is what I spoke about, the recreational part of it. I grew up, there was a center called Tusoni Center and Sankopano. It's really sad that today those very centers have people who are living within them, and those centers have people who actually in government offices that are actually board members who are collecting monies from individuals who are living in those centers. I have a certificate for baking that comes from Tusoni Center, but now our children cannot get that. So my plan was that we need to then revive those places to make sure that even those who are utilizing drugs at this time and space, they go to rehab, but coming back to Alexandra again, they have nothing to do. So then they relapse. So that was my plan in itself, to say that's the change that I want us to do before any other thing, because I can give you a house, I can give you everything. But if you as an individual are not fine emotionally, mentally, it's a problem for me.
Nthabiseng, if the authorities, if Dada Morero is watching the show right now, what would you say to him?
I'll say, come to the people, come speak to the people, come and engage with the people. Those are the people that have put you there. And they trusted you with their votes to put you there so that you can actually fulfill what is empty out of their lives. So change their lives. Listen to them more.
Ladies, that's where we're going to leave the conversation. I certainly hope that in 2 weeks, if not earlier, we can pick up a conversation and talk about change, talk about movement that will benefit Ugogo, particularly in Alex, with that accommodation. Thanks so much for coming onto the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for the invite.
All right, that's where we're going to leave that conversation. Community leaders and activists, Nkele, Galedzana and Nthabiseng Ratsela, speaking to us about the challenges around accommodation in Alex, where a number of containers that potentially could impact 2,000 families lie unoccupied.